Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is me, Rushstead Dixon Vixen, and tonight I want to talk to you about something. Not only today is November 10th, 2021, but today is the anniversary of an unfortunate event that happened to me 10 years ago tonight. I'm going to tell you all about it. I'm going to take you out. Yeah, it's a little cold outside, so I'll be very quick about it. I'm going back in, go back in and go back out. Don't mind the mess. Okay, it all started off after I got off work and I had had a bite to eat, and then I went to the gym and pretend that it was just a normal day. After work, I went to the library. Picked up some stuff. Like, it was just a normal day for me. So here I am. So after dinner, I went to the gym, the YWCA, and WCA. Yeah, and I ran on the treadmill, and I had a yoga class, and then I checked my volunteer schedule to see when I'll be volunteering there next, and so everything was all set, and I said goodnight to everybody, and then I started to walk home from the gym. And like, this was today, by all days. It was the birthday of my mother. My mother's turned 59 that year. And it was also a close friend of mine. I was supposed to get together with him to celebrate with wings and a movie. But eventually, it all changed. Here I am outside. This is what all happened. After I left the YWCA, I walked up to I left the YWCA and I went down to the McNabb, and I always walk down to the McNabb, take a shortcut to the McNabb Street Tunnel, get quicker to where I live. And so everything was fine. I was listening to I was listening to music because I like the quietness.
Hey, are you on Twitch? Facebook?
Nope.
YouTube?
Nope. Okay. So eventually I had I'm going down Bold Street. It's been a while, and like over there, right across there, I'll turn around. The McNabb Street Tunnel is going down there, and I was walking up. Everything was fine. I was walking down the street to that corner, up that corner where I'm walking down on Bold Street. And then as soon as I almost got home, I got something. I felt something hit behind me. And then I fell right into this area around the corner from where I lived. That's when he started hitting me over again. But eventually I yelled. I was afraid. I was scared for my life. I was terrified, and I yelled out fire, and then he ran off. So I tried to get myself up. I was wobbly. And then I wanted to get home. So eventually then this guy came up right in front of me. And I told him, "Help me, please. I'm in trouble." And he told me, "You're gonna be okay. Just go home and call the police." Okay, so that's what I did. I walked home very, very slowly. I was almost home. I was shaken up. I was afraid. I was so scared. Eventually, so I walked home. I was almost at my apartment. I was shaking like crazy. And as soon as I got to my place, I felt something was wrong. And I felt the back of my ear. And then I saw the blood on my hand. And I realized, oh my God, I really do need help. So I called for help, and then there was this guy that was walking up the street, and I walked up to him and I said, please help me, please. I've been attacked, I need help, please. And he says, okay, come with me. And across the street to that restaurant, and the back door right there, that's when he started banging on the door and told him to open the door. And he banged and he says, come on, open up, I got an emergency. So eventually they let us in the back door, and luckily there were some doctors having dinner there, and they're from St. Joe's, and they walked up to me and they told me to sit, and they say, it's gonna be all right, you're okay, you're safe, okay? So eventually, I was starting to, I'm like scared. I was like shaking like crazy. I was cold. I was frightened. Yeah, and the lady, I thought, oh my God, my life is over. My life is over. So eventually, luckily one of the managers at the restaurant called the police and called an ambulance too. And I said, oh God, I think I'm going to the hospital. That's the most important, the scariest thing I have a big phobia of. So eventually, eventually they covered me up, tended to my wounds, and then they brought me up. They took me in the back area where the kitchen was, and then I started to feel dizzy, nauseous, and I felt I was gonna be sick, thought I was gonna throw up. So eventually, the cops came, they sat me down, asked me some questions, and eventually, eventually we were waiting for the ambulance, and then I realized I'm not going home tonight. I told the police, I'm going to the hospital, right? And he goes, yes, you are. And eventually so he gave me a bucket in case I wanted to throw up. But eventually the ambulance finally came. They put me in a neck brace, and I felt so uncomfortable. Like they helped me out. They helped me into the ambulance. I was just like, God, please don't take me. Not yet. Not yet. I got a lot to live for. I have a lot to live for. So eventually, I arrived at the hospital, and I was in the emergency room at part area, and then they put me in a room. And I was just like lonely. I was scared. I was thirsty. I was afraid. I was so afraid. Like I felt alone. I felt, what am I going to do now? I'm scared. I want to get this over with. But eventually a nice officer came in. who got assigned to the case, talked to me, and I described the guy. And he took it all down, and he says, "We're not going to stop until we catch him. I promise you that. We're going to get him." Mm-hmm. So, and then eventually, like, yeah, like the cops called my friend Sue, and then I told him, "Please call him." And as a detective, "Do you want me to call your mother?" And I said, but it was her birthday today. And I says, "I don't want to put a damper on her birthday, but I guess if you have to, you have to." And I told him, "Call her," because I needed her more. I needed her more than anything. So I started to cry, and then all that, and I was just so frightened. And then the doctors came, and they took me to get a CAT scan to see if there's any damage, to see if there's any damages. And so that's what they did. And I was just like, oh my God, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening? I had to get x-rays, and I was like shivering, and I was shivering. I went into shock. Like I was shivering, I was shaking on the gurney, and then they put a warm blanket on top of me so I could calm down, and it says, "It's okay. It's okay." Okay, and that now, and then after they took me to the room, they put me some blood work. They hooked me on an IV. And I lie down, and he says, "Your mom and your friend are here." And I said, "Thank you." And then they were there. They were holding my hands. I looked at my mom and says, "I'm sorry, Mom. Happy birthday. I'm sorry I had to ruin your birthday." And he goes, "It's okay, Jen. I'm used to it now. Last year, I totaled the car." And it says, "Well, next year, I'm staying in bed." And we had a good laugh. And he says, "The doctors are going to stitch you up." And Susan says, what about my job?" And Susan says, "Don't worry about it. I'll handle it. I'll take care of it. Okay." Okay. Because my future was on the line and all that. But eventually, eventually 2 people from the crisis center came, and they helped me so I didn't want to be alone for tonight. So they stayed, and they talked to me, and for a bit, and a nice lady gave me a present. It's something for very cozy, like they handmade them for victims of crisis and all that. And this is a sock puppet, a sock monkey. I had this for 10 years now, and it comforted me all the time. I hoped it whenever I felt alone. And so eventually then I had to be transferred to another hospital to go for some more tests. I'm like, oh, what now? Like, I'm lying in pain. I'm in this uncomfortable neck brace. It's gonna be a long night. And I just did not want to close my eyes. And he says, "Don't worry. We're here. You're safe." And so eventually, as soon as a couple hours later, when the doctors came back, they took me down to another room where I had to have another CAT scan. But eventually they put this red dye in there, and I'm like, ooh. I'm like, okay. So eventually I was calm, everything was done, and then I got checked out, and I got out, and then people were coming in and coming out. Then all of a sudden my mom came right first thing in the morning, and she stayed with me, and she told me, "Just go to sleep." And I was so thirsty, I was just slipping, tasting water with a sponge, and I'm like, on one of those citron sponges, and I'm like, oh, okay, I just want a sip of water. I want a glass of ice water, please. So eventually, I had to wait a few hours till they find a room for me. But the doctor came, and he gave me he gave me some, he said, "You're very lucky. You just have some soft muscle tissue, and you have a soft tissue injury, and you don't need any surgery, and your CAT scans were clear." And I said, "All you need is stitches, and is stitches and a few days in the hospital." I said, "Okay, fine." So eventually, when the doctor came, when the room was available, they took me up, and I started and I lied down. I tried to sleep, but eventually I had guests coming in. Yeah, my friend Sue came in, and then I was so hungry. I ordered some soup. I ate some soup, something that was like cream of chicken or something. And so eventually, then I had some yogurt for dessert. And then the visiting hours were starting to end. And then my stepdad came, and he and my mom said goodbye to me and said, "I'll see you tomorrow." And then the doctors came in. They say, we're gonna take you down for a chest X-ray. And I'm like, "What? A chest X-ray? What do I need a chest X-ray for? To see if you have pneumonia?" I'm like, "I don't have pneumonia." Okay. I said, all right. So that's when things start to go south. I went downstairs. I went to the the X-ray room, and they had my chest X-rayed. So far, everything was fine. And then all of a sudden, when I was waiting outside the hall, I started to feel nauseous, and I thought I was going to throw up on the floor and all over myself. And oh my God, oh, please help me. I'm like, "Help me, God, help me, get me back to my room. I'm going to be sick." And eventually they came like about 15 minutes later, and I'm like, so they took me back to my room. And then all of a sudden, as soon as they got me on the bed, I asked for a bedpan, and I just threw up. I threw up. And I thought maybe it was probably the solid food that made me sick. So eventually, I told them that, well, then then breakfast came, and it was yogurt and cream of wheat and some kind of cream of wheat cereal. And it was like disgusting. And I drank some juice. I drank some water eventually. Then I had more company, and then I switched. So I decided to ask the people, switch to the broth. I'll have the broth diet. And the doctors kept saying, "You ready to go home now?" But my mom stood her ground and says she's not leaving this hospital until she eats a full meal. Yeah, because she's throwing up all of a sudden after she eats. Like, come on, like all the drugs I had, like I said to myself, I slowly drank the broth and all that, and so far, like the next few days, I was afraid to put something in my mouth. And then on the last day I spent at the hospital, like the ladies gave me some nice socks to put on my feet. I got flowers, I got candy, I got plants, I got everything. And I was just like, "Oh, how nice." Care packages and that. But on the Tuesday of that, on a Tuesday, these two guys came and says, "Okay, are you ready? We're gonna teach you how to use a walker." And I'm like, "What? A walker?" Oh, and I says, "Well, okay, so we're all ready to go." And then he told me to go near the walker, and I was like, it was a piece of cake. And I said, "I don't need it." Then they taught me how to use a cane, walk with a cane. I'm like, oh, walking up the stairs slowly, and says, "This is easy." And then they taught me how to get into a tub. And so eventually, so I said to myself, okay, I already know that. And then my mom talked to the doctor, and she told me, "You're going home." And I said, "Okay." And I says, and she decided to have me come home with her, She had a spare bedroom, and so I'm going to be there I was there for about a couple of weeks, and I was afraid of throwing up. I was afraid of touching food, all because all I've been eating were crackers and ginger ale and jello. And then eventually I went to bed. I was wearing a neck brace. It really bugged me. It was like I had a hard time sleeping. I had nightmares, and I couldn't even sleep. And so eventually, when I went downstairs, I stayed on the couch, my mother's couch. She had to go to a client's house, and she told me, "Do you like?" And I live with porridge, and I go, "Oatmeal," and I go, "I hate oatmeal. I hate cooked cereal. That's who I am." So eventually, she gave me a dish. She gave me some prunes, apricots, some dates, and some frozen grapes, and some dry toast. So eventually, that's what I ate, and but eventually, I spent 3 weeks lying in the bed when I had the stitches. It was really painful. Like, thank God my mom was there, and she told me practice yoga breathing, practice yoga breathing. And so, but they put the needle in and they put the stitches in. I was just like, oh God, it hurt. One time I had a bit of an itch, and then all of a sudden felt something ooze out, and it goes. So I immediately called the nurse, and she said, "It's okay. You just, yeah, it's nothing serious." I say, "Okay, thank you." So eventually I spent the next 3 weeks on my mother's couch. Yeah, battling depression, loneliness, positivity, trying to be positive, and so I'm trying not to put out too much information here, but eventually I was slowly eating some toast, and I didn't throw up at all that one day, and then the next day I had some fruit, I had some breakfast, a little bit of breakfast, but then my appetite started to come back, and then I asked my mom, "Can you make me some scrambled eggs?" And she says, "Okay." And so I slowly started eating the scrambled eggs for dinner. And I felt like, oh, I'm getting my appetite back. It felt really, really good. But eventually I had to go to the police station a couple of times. They had to drive me, and one day they wanted me to do a photo lineup and then take some pictures of my scars. And eventually, and then as soon as the last picture was taken, I felt the room was spinning. And I was like sweating, and I was just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then I felt my left arm going up, and I'm like, oh God, I think I'm having a stroke. I'm having a stroke. And the detective says, "No, you're not. You're having a panic attack. We'll get you some water, and let's go out for some fresh air." Okay, and then the detective gave me some water, and then I went out for fresh air. But the truth was, it was an anxiety attack that I had, and I thought I was gonna have a stroke. And I'm just like, okay, thank God. Then I had to go back again. Then I had to pick up a few things that were. And I got my yoga mat back. I got my rush bag back, or something like that. And then they pricked my thumb. Then I had to get a thumb prick and another photo lineup. I'm like, okay. So the next 3 weeks, we had our good days. I had my bad days. Yeah, and eventually, but after I had a nurse come in and change my neck brace, and I had to, and they helped me clean up after myself, and apparently I was starting to get the feeling back again and started doing things on my own. But that was the best day of my life was when I got the neck brace off. And so they took it off. I had another X-ray, and I thought, oh, don't tell me I gotta still wear it. And he says, you're safe, you're fine. Yeah, you're fine. But they recommend me do some physiotherapy. So I got a call. So they gave me a card and tell them to call this person, and they'll set an appointment. They'll make an appointment. And so eventually, but I had friends come over. Yeah, but eventually, when I finally got the neck brace off, I could finally get some sleep. But the bedroom was it was cold. I was cold, and I just did not sleep at all. But I realized that the window was open all night. My mom left the window open. I'm like, oh gosh. So I closed the window, and then mom told me to put some flannel sheets on my bed. It'll make you nice and warm. And I said, okay. So I said to myself, I'm gonna get some better. I think I'm gonna sleep good tonight. And so during my mom's house, all I did was eat, sleep, read a bit, had visitors over, and watch game shows, soap operas, trashy talk shows, and cartoons, and cooking shows, and some football. That's when my stepdad takes over the television during football season. I'm like, oh boy. At that time, she didn't have a computer. She didn't have a DVD player. She didn't have a stereo. Some days I was bored. No offense, but. And then after 3 weeks, after a lot of her help, I decided to go back to Hamilton, but I just didn't want to go home yet. So a group that I've been dealt with for over 20 years offered me to stay at one of their places, and I said to myself, as long as I keep my independence. And they say, it's a deal, because I don't know how long it's going to be. Then I immediately got counseling. I immediately had an appointment with the anxiety clinic to figure out, is there something more than Asperger's? Is this something more? I think I had something else. I thought I might be manic or bipolar or schizophrenic or something. But eventually, they officially diagnosed me with post-traumatic stress disorder. Yes, from all the trauma that I've been through the years, it added on to it. And so now I'm on medication to make for PTSD. And then I forgot to give my sock monkey a name. I forgot to tell you my sock monkey's name. His name is Geddy, after Geddy Lee from Rush. I was going to name him Rush, but Mom told me, oh, he needs a better name than that. And I told him, okay, I'll name him Geddy. Geddy. So I named him Geddy. And speaking of Rush, they were my saviors when I was going through the rough time. I remembered when Neil Peart of Rush, he lost his wife and his daughter 10 months within each other. And then he had to go find himself to deal with the pain of his loss. So he got on a motorcycle and he trekked, and he went traveling all over the United States of America. And I've read Neil's books. I've read Ghost Rider. I've read Masked Rider. I've read Far and Away. And I also got another book. It was very, very long, but eventually. And then I watched Beyond the Lighted Stage, the Rush documentary, and I said to myself, I'm like Neil. You got to keep moving. And I felt that Neil's animal instincts were passed down to me. And I'm just like, if Neil can make it, you can make it. And so, but I had bad days. I had good days and all, but then one day over the summer, I was like so unsure about what I wanted in my life. And so eventually I said to myself, I want to be happy. And I chose happiness. And eventually, and I just got to start over from scratch. So eventually, I called. Yeah, so I started going home one night a week. Then I went up to 2 nights a week, and it kept going and going until I set myself a date when I can go home, stay and go back to my apartment for good because I did not want to give up my independence. And I said to myself, Jen, get your place cleaned up, decorate it for Christmas. You'll have a Christmas warm feeling when you get home for good. And that's what I did. I decorated the house for Christmas, had the whole place cleaned up when I was living there. And I said, and then I went back up to the manor for the last time, and then I said, and then I was busy, then I was doing laundry, getting ready, getting everything set up, and I handed in the keys, and I said, thank you for everything. And so I was, and then when I walked out the door, got on the bus, and I was heading home. I was very relieved, and being home, it felt really, really good. It felt so good. Well, after therapies and a lot of meetings, counseling and all that, they captured the guy who did this to me. And yeah, I had to go to trial. It took like 5 years. But eventually, I went to the final RushCon in 2016 to get my mind off it. But eventually I really had a good time and had some fun. Everyone from RushCon told me, you got this. You're gonna do good. So eventually I went to St. Catharines. That's where the trial was. And I told the truth about what happened to me that night. And then eventually, I went home, and then all of a sudden I have to wait. And then when the cops called me on a Monday, it says the jury's out and jury's in. They're deciding on a verdict. And I said, do I have to be there when it's read? And they told me, no, you don't have to be there. But I told them, but the sentencing's going to be in Hamilton if he's convicted. And I said, okay, I want to be there. I'll be there. Okay, and then he'll call me when with the news. So next day, everything went according to plan. Like everything, I was getting on with my life as usual. Then all of a sudden, the phone rang, and it was a detective, and they told me the news: guilty on all counts. And I'm just like, yes, thank God. But eventually, it was like a huge weight lifted off my shoulders, and I'm like, thank you, God, thank God. And eventually I was so happy that he got convicted. And then about a few weeks later, I went to the sentencing in the courthouse. So eventually, I was there, and I was going to read a statement before they serve the ultimate sentence. And eventually I went up, I confronted him, and I said, on November 10th, 2011, it will be a day I will never forget. It was the day that my life was almost taken. And there's a lot you don't know about me. I was hurt physically, financially, mentally, and emotionally. I had to go. I lost income. I almost lost my independence. It cost me a lot of things. But the only thing you did not know, that the day that you did this to me, it was my mother. It was the birthday of my mother. And if you succeeded in doing what you did, she would have spent every year, every birthday for the rest of her life, grieving for her daughter. Well, and I told him, well, as of now, after you go away, I'm putting this behind me and I'm getting on and I'm going to move forward with my life to positive things, to positive and bigger things. And that's what I'm going to do. So I hope I will never forget this. I will never forget this day and never forget what you did to me. But it's time for me to let it go and get on with my life. Thank you. So eventually I was relieved, and then the sentence came and I was safe and all that. And they say, I sentence you to life in prison, because he's already doing life for another charge. And I'm just like, and then as soon as the gavel came down and says, court's adjourned, God bless the Queen, I said to myself, thank you. I went up to the detective and the lawyer says, thank you. It's over. It's over. And I felt free, and they told me, now you can celebrate Christmas. Now you can celebrate Christmas. It will be wonderful. And so eventually I was happy. I saw some other people there too, and they said, good job. It's time to live your life. It's time to move on. I said, so that's what I did. And eventually I did move on. And I had some good times and some bad times. But the thing is, I keep putting it off, but I want to write a book. I want to write a book. But the thing is, I don't know where to go to, how to publish it. And I really, really do need some advice. So, I really want to get started. I keep putting it off all year round, all the time. I meant to do it. I even kept a journal, and I forgot about what I never went to that spot for in a few years. I forgot all about it. But eventually, since it's the 10th anniversary, I'm thinking about, I'm going to start researching about how to write a book. So, and to get my podcast going. So eventually I kept putting it off too many times. And so now's the time. I think it's time for me to get myself in gear and go on the right track. So eventually we'll see where things work out. Well, and that's it for me. And I hope you enjoyed my story. So if you have any questions, any concerns, if you want to subscribe to my blog or leave a comment, please do so, but please be respectful. So once again, thank you very much. This is me, Rushstead Dixon Vixen, saying good night and God bless. Oh, and thank you, Neil Pierre. I don't know if I would have survived this without you. You'll always be my spiritual animal, my spiritual guide. Even though you're gone, even though you're with God now, I still look up to you. God bless you, Neil.